You can change the world. Learn from proven change makers from all walks of life. They'll show you how to raise money, invest for impact, and so much more. You can start small. Start today and never quit. You can change the world by strengthening your superpowers. Now, welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Our guest today is KingsCrowd CEO Chris Lustrino. Let me give you now the chance to tell everybody what it is that KingsCrowd is, because I know they're excited to learn more.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for having me here today. More than happy to tell you a little bit about KingsCrowd. Very simply, if you are a startup investor who has gotten into this new industry, right, where anyone can invest as little as $100 into startups on platforms like WeFunder and Republic and Start Engine and MicroVentures, so on and so forth, then you very likely have experienced, the pain that comes with a new market, which is there's a lot of inefficiencies. And one of the largest inefficiencies is just the fact that you have to go look across over 80 plus platforms where there are investment opportunities. In any given year, there's over 2,000 individual startups that you can invest in. So how do you do that in an efficient manner? Well, that's basically what KingsCrowd is here to do. We're here to bring the entire market under one roof and act like a Bloomberg or a Morningstar type solution, but focus very specifically on helping the everyday investor be able to make smart, intelligent, and most importantly, really efficient decisions in navigating this new landscape of startup investing by providing a data and ratings platform that helps aggregate and provide due diligence tools on quite literally every deal that is available to you to invest in as a startup investor.
The reality is, compared to the venture capital market, the crowdfunding space is still pretty small. But I think you and I share a vision of a different world that is coming. I was reading one of your documents the other day and how you plan to grow the business, and you see this space reaching sort of what you were calling the mainstream in about a decade, which I see as well. And what I think that really means, I don't know about you, but I think offerings under Reg CF and Reg A, where ordinary investors can participate, will represent 100 times, at least 100 times more of the market than they did in 2023. What's your take? How do you see this unfolding? Are we at the beginning of something huge, or are we seeing the maturation of a little industry?
Yeah. So just think about it, right? Think about every industry in the United States and on a global level, right? 20 years ago, when you talked about mobile banking, people said, who's ever going to do their banking on their phone? That's insane. We'll never do that. And guess what? Now everything's mobile banking. When people talked about investing in stocks and they said, oh, you're going to do that again on your phone and you're not going to have a broker helping you. It was complete insanity. No one thought that that would be. Now, quite literally every facet of financial services over the last 20 years has become digitized, right? We all use our phones. We all use our websites to be able to access our banking, our investments, so on and so forth. The last frontier of investments that continue to live offline are all of the private market investments that you make, whether it's your house, whether it's the housing market in general, whether it's commercial real estate, whether it's startups, whether it's private equity style, deals where the companies are worth $100, $500 million, whether it's credit products like, large debt funds that get raised for private companies. All of these things today take place offline. They quite literally still live in the paper age, which is just insane. No one lives in the analog age anymore. So from my perspective, to believe that the $13 trillion in private market assets that sit in the things that I just mentioned, like housing, like startups, like real estate, so on and so forth, are going to live offline for the rest of the time, I think is a pipe dream. And I think is a really insane idea. I believe very, very, very strongly that all of these things are going to become digitally native. And we are going to buy our houses online. We are going to invest in startups online. We are going to invest in real estate online. We're going to invest in collectibles online. All of these things are becoming digitized. That is where things are headed. And to believe otherwise, I think from my perspective is insane. But listen, we're the Mavericks who are thinking about the future and envisioning a future that goes where we all want it to truly go. But we're still in the infancy of this industry, and we have a very, very long way to go.
Yeah, it is a fascinating to think about how small the crowdfunding industry is, uh, focusing on that narrow subset of what you're doing at KingsCrowd. But that's how I use it. I think of it as such a crowdfunding tool, but crowdfunding is like 1/200th or 1/400th of the venture capital market, and I see a world where it could rival. In fact, I see it in the long run exceeding the size of the venture capital market for a variety of reasons. Right there
Yeah.
are thousands of companies every year that raise venture capital, right? But there are millions of companies that borrow money, small businesses, right? And when I say small business, I'm talking about everything from solopreneurs to 500-person companies that are raising capital in a whole host of different ways, and it could all shift to work more efficiently, more inexpensively through crowdfunding. I get really excited. So, tell us about, you are now connecting. You're doing a crowdfunding campaign yourself. Tell us a little bit about the campaign. A little bit. We have to. The lawyers, right? They're watching. But what can you tell us about the offering? How can people find it and learn more?
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, we've always believed in eating our own dog food, right? So if we believe that this market is a way of the future and how companies are going to raise money, then we ourselves believe we should be doing the same thing. So since I started this company nearly 6 years ago, we have raised from over 4,000 individual investors. So we are big, big believers in aligning our own customers, our own community with our belief that the markets will become digitally native over the next decade. So our current round of funding is on WeFunder, wefunder.com/KingsCrowd. You can find our round. And we're really raising that capital to help scale up some of our key revenue channels, to help continue to invest in R&D and AI and automations that we're working on, and to continue to bolster our balance sheet. We're really working very, very hard to build a sustainable business that can be break even, that can become profitable, and that we can sustain our profits for a long period of time, because we know this market takes a long time to develop. So we want to be in a position where we're not relying on outside capital necessarily. So that is kind of what we're working towards. And we think we've priced this round at a place that's really strong and really interesting for investors to be able to get in.
You're not new to crowdfunding. You've raised a few times, both for your enterprise and for your fund. Tell us a little bit about the fund that you've got. It's sort of I don't want to call it a side business, because it's a strategic part of what you're doing at KingsCrowd. Tell us about the fund.
Absolutely. So this is probably one of the most exciting things that we have in our business. It's called KingsCrowd Capital. And the very simple idea is, many of you who are listening or watching us, you might be investors in something called an ETF, right? Almost, I think the predominant amount of investments made in the public markets today are actually done through ETF products, where you invest, $100 into an ETF, and then they go and invest in, the S&P 500, or they invest in a certain sector, whatever it may be. And they create this fully diversified product where you have exposure to a bunch of companies in one investment. And that's really powerful for passive investors, right? Who don't want to do all the work of doing individual deals. They want great diversification in one financial product. Well, that's exactly what we've built at KingsCrowd Capital, except we're doing it for the private markets. So our whole thesis is that if we have access to 2,000 now and probably 20,000 in the next 3 or 4 years, deals a year, could you imagine building index-like fund products or ETF-like fund products where we fully diversify a fund where you give us one check, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it may be, and we diversify you into 50, 100 unique investments. So you have a highly diversified investment fund product where you could become a passive investor in the private markets. And one of the really neat things about that over the long term is thinking about being able to add on investment fund products over time, right? Imagine creating a female founders fund, a social impact fund, an ESG fund, a clean tech fund, whatever fund you want to build, we can build because we have access to an incredible amount of deal flow, and our data and our ratings that we've built over years and years and years can inform the investments that we actually make. I do believe there's a future coming in the not too distant future where we could create fully programmatic AI driven funds that quite literally ingest our ratings and then say, for this theme, looking at the highest rated companies, these are the investments we should make, and then they're automatically made. And that's the world that I'm trying to work towards.
Well, it is exciting to think about that because all the technology is leading toward making this whole crowdfunding space easier. One of the things that I've been playing around with is helping people develop tools for doing faster due diligence using AI, right? And you're doing that at your shop so that you can make your process more efficient, and that's exciting to think about. Tell us a little bit about how you see AI shaping this industry.
First off, I just want to lead with, I get a little triggered at times when people just run after the next trend, right? I've seen founders who went from crypto to the metaverse and now in AI, right? And they just quite literally changed their company to doing whatever the hot thing is so they can raise money. And I don't believe that's the right approach. But I do believe that we are going to leverage AI in a pretty major way at our business. And I also believe that artificial intelligence is creating a new frontier of opportunity. But I don't actually think we need to build all that many more AI companies, right? Google built search, and how many more search companies have we really needed? Almost none. The reality is the AI technology that's out there is as good as we need. Now what the AI needs is exceptional data. AI, right, is powered by data. Data is its brain. That's the thing that it ingests to create the insights, to create the capabilities, whatever it may be. It's all powered by the data it's fed. So I personally believe, and this is very much biased because I'm a data company, but I personally believe the most valuable companies of the next 10 to 15 years will be the data companies that power AI companies, right? Someone's going to come along and want to build an AI engine that decides what investments to make in the private markets. And who are they going to call? They're going to call KingsCrowd and say, we need your data to build our AI models off of. Because just going out to the World Wide Web, you get a lot of noise and a lot of things that are going to make the AI not work well or come up with crazy thoughts and ideas. But utilizing our data, you could power some really interesting insights because the data is actually correct. It's accurate. It's in depth. It's horizontally over time for 6, 7, 8 years, and it will be, many more as we go forward. So all of that is to say, AI will help make all of these things more efficient, but it all comes back to, are we feeding it good data? And that's where it starts. And I think we're building that foundation.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was playing around with an AI prompt, and I was asking about the management team, and it populated the management team with kind of a random name. And so I spent like 20 minutes trying to track down this guy. And it turned out that this guy had listed himself as working at a company with the same name 20 years ago on LinkedIn. And the AI engine discovered this little artifact and added him to the management team. And he clearly wasn't part of the current management team. It's not clear whether he was working for the same company a long time ago or a company with the same. Anyway, what a mess. So yeah, the quality of the data is essential to that. And that's a huge opportunity for KingsCrowd going forward. So very exciting. Listen, everybody, we're going to take a quick break here. But when we come back, we're going to talk to Chris about his superpower. Now, again, if you just joined us, Chris is the CEO of KingsCrowd, a company that is playing an extraordinary linchpin role in the crowdfunding space and alternative investing space. So you don't want to miss this. Stick around and rejoin us stick around for the conversation about its superpower in just a minute.
Hope to raise money from the impact crowd. Good investors are as interested in community, social or environmental impact as you. Connect with Funding Hope, an SEC-registered FINRA member crowdfunding portal to learn how to raise capital from the impact crowd. Scan the QR code now.
Join us for Supercrowd 24 for 2 full days of wealth and impact creating content at this virtual conference on April 17th and 18th. We'll have 100 speakers and live pitch sessions. Learn how to invest like a pro and raise money from the crowd. Save 50% with the discount code SUPERCROWD at thesupercrowd.com.
You can get in on the ground floor to help fix the climate crisis for as little as $100. Pause now to scan the QR code to get started or visit s4g.biz/raisegreen. You can beat a green at Raise Green.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Chris Lustrino today, and Chris is the CEO and founder of KingsCrowd, an organization, a company that is doing extraordinary things, just playing such a vital role in providing data and ratings on the offerings in the crowdfunding space. I hardly go a day without using it. So stick around. We're going to talk to Chris now about his superpower. Chris, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you. Tell us a little bit about, well, listen, you've done amazing things. You've got the fund, you've got KingsCrowd, and KingsCrowd, I mean, you're practically starting to roll up the industry. You've made 2 or 3 or 4 acquisitions over the years, really starting to be just a key pivotal player in the space. What is your superpower?
Wow. So, I've spent a lot of years in this industry. As you mentioned, we're 6 years in and we're nowhere near where I want to be. So if I had to really define my superpower, it would be resiliency. It's a willingness to go in the face of continuous and unending obstacles. And, Devin, I could talk about so many different stories. I don't know if you want to take this in a certain direction, but I'll just start by saying I think resiliency is my superpower, and I'm happy to dive in as much as you like on that.
Yeah, I think resilience is such an important superpower for entrepreneurs, right? There's no entrepreneur that ever went from lower left to upper right in a straight line. It's never happened. Even at some of the great companies that you hear about, it's not hard to find the stories of the bumps in the roads, right? So it's always a challenge. Can you share a story perhaps of when you deployed that, when you faced a problem and you applied your resiliency and overcame it?
Absolutely. So, I mean, in many ways, I've kind of spent 6 years on the treadmill of resiliency. I'll tell you that much. But, to sum it up here with one story, I'll never forget, I had spent about 2 years working on a 8-figure deal for KingsCrowd. It was going to really kind of transform our company. And it had so many ups and downs along the way, but was right there on the 1-yard line, feeling really good about things, had come such a long way. And I had been struggling that whole time to fundraise for the company, to take care of it, to get it where it needed to go. Finally, it looks like it's about to happen. I'm hiring a team behind this. I'm getting really excited about it. And I'll never forget, it was right before Thanksgiving, quite literally a couple days before Thanksgiving. And I was on a business trip. I was meeting with an investor that afternoon. I get out, I get a phone call from the group I've been talking to for, a couple of years. Basically, the deal was dead, and it was nothing we had done or anything like that. One of the key partners had left, and that was it. It was over. The 2 years of work, the 8-figure deal, I knew was pretty much out the window. And talk about kind of getting knocked in the gut and having the wind knocked out of you. And I remember I was in Stamford, Connecticut, just walking this little courtyard, and what do you do in that moment, right? It was going to change everything. And I quite literally took a few minutes. I walked around this little courtyard in Stamford, Connecticut. It was pretty cold outside. And I said, what are my next steps? And immediately I started to, call some of my key investors and got them to throw in a little money to kind of hold us over while I made a plan for how we were going to handle the future. I called one of the loan providers I had worked with before, who provided some rev-based financing. It took me like 3 hours to convince them to give me any money because they were really worried I was going to run out of money at the time. But I told them X, Y, and Z reasons why that wasn't going to happen. And we just needed a little bridge until I figured out what we were going to do next, and stabilize the business, continue to meet payroll, and went home for Thanksgiving and said, I'm going to be with my family. I'm going to be focused on this moment, not going to let that distract. And when I got back, started making the plans for year end, how we were going to launch in the next year, and continue to move forward despite taking just an incredible hit as the founder of the business. And that's just one of so many stories I could tell you.
Well, that is such a great example of the kind of challenge and disappointment that I think all entrepreneurs face. And social entrepreneurs, I think those that are focused on solving a social problem along with building a business have an added layer, right? If you're trying to fix climate change, that's hard. You add that layer onto the challenges of running a business, and there are plenty of days when you need that resiliency to get you through the day. As you think about that, having built that as such a core skill, what would you suggest people do to develop their internal resiliency? I realize at some level you may not have consciously cultivated that, but you've developed that now. You may have coached people on your team through challenging circumstances that they've experienced. Uh, Tap into that and coach us now a little bit on how we can build our own resiliency.
Whether or not it can be built, I'm not sure. I don't know, but I do believe there are certain things, that you could at least think about on this front. There's a couple of great quotes out there, and I can't give you the exact wording, but actually one of our presidents, Calvin Coolidge, back in the day, basically said, the successful individual is that who is super resilient. He's like, there are many, many intelligent people who are never successful in life, don't do major things, and it's because they're not resilient. And ultimately, the truly successful people are the ones who just continuously stick around, whether that's in politics, whether that's in being in the entertainment industry, whether that's being a sports star, whether that's being a business star, whatever it may be. The people who are there at the end and have great success are the ones who just continuously fight the uphill battles with a smile on their face and they keep going. And then there's another great quote very recently, I think it was only in the last couple of weeks, the founder of NVIDIA. They've been around for over 20 years. People think NVIDIA, it's overnight success. No, they're over 20 years in the making. And NVIDIA said to a bunch of Stanford grads, the only thing I could wish for you is pain and suffering, because you're all intelligent, but your intelligence in the real world means almost nothing. You've succeeded your entire life. And if you think you have to continue to only succeed, you're in trouble because you have to fail. The only way you're pushing the limits and going beyond where you should be and going to new heights and getting to places that people haven't been is by failing on your way there. If you stay within your realm of success, that means you're not pushing the boundaries of where you can go. And so all I would say is be willing to fail. Give yourself the chance to just fail. Go out there and do something that you wanted to always do. Don't find all the reasons why you can't do it. Go and do it. And when you fail, feel good about it and realize it's not the end of the world and you can keep going. So, whether or not you can change your mindset, I don't know. Whether you can build resiliency, I don't totally know. But what I do know is you could at least push yourself to fail at least once and decide, can I keep doing this on an ongoing basis and push myself to new heights?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and it's a great suggestion. I had a guest on the show. I think of him now as a friend, and he was making the same point, right? And in fact, he's a professor now at Berkeley, and he one of the assignments he gives students in his class is to go fail at something. And he gives them an hour or half an hour. He says, "Go out and fail at something," and so the students have to go out and do something crazy like, will you walk me across the campus with your umbrella, or will you drive me over to San Francisco? I mean, just crazy requests. And the fun thing is, some of them don't fail at the crazy things. Like some of them come back, but by and large, they learn to cope with failure. It is something. It's hard, but we can learn. I think you're right. I think we can learn to be
it's
a
rare.
little bit more resilient.
It's funny and there's some studies out there about this, but it's rare for valedictorians and salutatorians in high school to go on to be truly the most successful. A lot of times, right? It's the person with dyslexia who struggled through school that ends up being a massive success. The most common one that comes to mind is Richard Branson, right? Was terrible at school and one of the most successful founders of all time. Sometimes it takes that person who's gone through failure their entire life and knows what it means to go beyond the bounds of comfort and be okay with it and realize you'll live another day.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, listen, as we wrap up here, take a minute and tell people how they can learn more about KingsCrowd, how they can connect with you, how they can learn about the crowdfunding campaign on WeFunder, et cetera, et cetera. Walk them through all that stuff quickly.
Sure. So you could always go to kingscrowd.com and check us out. Check out all the cool features and services that we offer to help investors like you be able to navigate these waters. Feel free to go and check out wefunder.com/kingscrowd. We have a $250 minimum investment. So if you even want to do a small chunk and just become a part of our team, our community, we'd love to have you along for the ride. And then lastly, my email is always open, chris@kingscrowd.com. It's very simple. I'm always open to conversation. I have talked with thousands and thousands of people over the last 6 years as I built this company. I love nothing more than talking with the naysayers as well as the people who believe wholly and completely in us.
All righty. Well, Chris, thank you very much for being with us. We wish you every success.
Thank you so much, Devin. It's been a pleasure.
All righty. Let's do some good.